Hey guys, it's Kate and welcome to this video. We will be looking at the ways how to save money on art supplies. If you're an art supply junkie like me, you're gonna spend a lot of money on them. So these are some tips to help you save the money. If this is the first time you see my videos, I'm Kate. And you can find a lot of pastel videos and tutorials and art tips and everything else on my YouTube channel as well as on my Patreon. So don't forget to click subscribe down there. So yeah, let's start. So the first way to save the money on art supplies is buying paper in sheets or in rolls of paper. So what this means is that when you buy, it doesn't matter which kind of paper you buy, but usually when you buy large sizes, eventually, if you put it into the measurements, if you count how many, for example, A4s are in one sheet, 50 × 70, that's centimeters, you will always see that the sheets are cheaper than blocks of paper. So, or you can buy also the jumbo blocks, like for example, I was buying paper for watercolor, and it was Taylor Rowney Ecofine, I think. So I had a block of 50 sheets that was like ridiculously cheap compared to the block of the usual, I don't remember, 12 sheets or something. Every time that you want to buy some paper, it's very comfortable to buy larger sizes or rolls of paper and then cut them down to the measurement that you need. The only downside to that is that you will have to store these sheets somewhere or the rolls of paper, but if you have space enough where to put your paper so it doesn't get squished or crumpled, then it's definitely a lot easier to save money that way. So the next tip is for those of you who like watercolor. Every time that you buy pans, you are spending more for the paint than if you were to buy tubes. So tubes, they have a lot more color in them, and if you look, there's not a big difference between the cost for half pans and tubes sometimes. It depends on the size as well. But what I've noticed is that tubes have a lot more color and they are cheaper compared to the pans. So with a tube, I can fill my half pans 2 or 3 times. Whereas with a half pan, I just have that amount of paint. Yes, it's true that it's dry and it's kind of more compact in there, but still you get more paint for your money than if you were to buy the dry pans or half pans of watercolor. Another thing is to pay attention to brands. So there are different brands, and if you see some of them are more expensive than others, it doesn't mean that that paint that is cheaper is worse or it's not artist grade. No, there are artist grades. For example, Russian paint, the white knights, they are really cheap compared to other paints. And this leads us to the next tip, which is buy stuff in sets. So when you're buying a set, it's cheaper than buying things one by one. Let's say you're buying pans of watercolor the same way, and you would pay for each pan or for each tube, let's say around £4. Whereas if you buy a set, it's usually cheaper and you have a place where to store it usually. And the same goes for pencils or for pastels. So sets usually are cheaper. And the good thing about the sets is that you can always find things that you need because there are particular sets. For example, with pastels, you will have colors for landscapes, colors for portraits, colors for flowers, and so on, wildlife. So you get to choose kind of the colors in the set, but at the same time, you get all these colors cheaper than you would if you were to buy them one by one. Then again, if you would like to start something, you would still need a set. Like for example, if you decided to start pastels, you would still need a set. And this way, it's a great opportunity for you as a beginner to start out with something and then learn the colors instead of buying colors one by one, not knowing which colors to get. Because when you're starting any medium, it's still, even if you're experienced with another medium, it's still not the same. So it's better if you have a starter set and to go from there. So it's always going to be cheaper. The next tip is about packaging. So pay attention when you're buying, for example, let's say watercolor, and you have a version in plastic box and the version in a metallic box. And then there's also the paper cardboard boxes. I've seen those as well. Also for artist grade paints. Most important thing to know here is that the cheaper the box, the cheaper you get the paint. If you have somewhere to store it, for example, or if you're okay with using a plastic box, because sometimes, I don't know, I was thinking when I got my first set of Sennelier, it was like, oh, so cool to mix the colors on the palette of the box itself, but now I never use it because I use ceramic plates all the time for that, and they are a lot better than any metallic surface. So basically, it's very important to note that if the packaging looks more expensive, it's going to be more expensive. The same goes for pencils. You can buy pencils open stock, for example, and in a cardboard box and in a tin. I have an example with Kohinoors. I bought the Kohinoor pastel pencils, which in a tin cost way more than I paid for them one by one. Here's like an exception to that rule of buying things one by one. But it depends on the location that you're at, and I was just lucky to find this shop that was actually selling them for that price. But usually, still, if you buy a set, it comes cheaper. And if you buy a set instead of the metallic box, you buy it in a cardboard box, it's going to cost you a lot less. Now, let's talk about pastel pencils, watercolor pencils, color pencils, all kind of pencils. So the next tip is about them. Instead of throwing away your little short tips of pencils, I literally ended up with Prismacolor that was like this big. Use pencil extenders. You can get those off eBay, off Amazon, or any art supply store. And these pencil extenders, sometimes they have even two ends to them, so you can put two pencils, one on each end. And these pencil extenders really prolong the life of your pencils, and that way you get to use the very smallest tip of your pencil until the very end. Next thing is colored pencils. When you're buying colored pencils, for example, let's take Kohinoors. I'm sure that there are other colored pencils that come in the same variety, but in Kohinoor range, they have those pencils that are in a wooden casing, and then there are the pencils that have no casing at all, meaning that all the pencil, it's kind of the pigment stick itself. So you can use that pigment stick, and when you sharpen it, you basically are sharpening the pigment away. But anyway, you're using the pencil, and it's like a lot more of that pigment in that pencil that doesn't have a wooden casing. There are also Inktense blocks, for example, just to give you an example of what that can be. So basically, without the wood, it's cheaper from the side that there is no wood casing, and you actually get more pigment. And also because it's all pigment, you have like a huge amount of time that you can work with that material, and by the end of the day it comes a lot cheaper than the pencil in the wooden casing, because those pencils just like fly away. So if you are doing a lot of art, then yeah, try the ones that don't have a casing, that are like the sticks of the pigment by themselves. This next tip is for those of you who like to mount their sheets of paper, let's say, onto a board. What I'm doing with my soft pastels, for example, for velour or for Mitons paper, sometimes it's really cool to actually kind of attach your paper permanently to a foam board. I'm buying acid-free foam boards so that they don't yellow and that I can keep my work as long as it can last, for like centuries, I hope. But anyway, I take my paper and I'm using the acid-free pH neutral adhesive. So I will leave a link to the one that I'm using below the video, not in any contact with the company that produces it, but just it's something that I'm using. So it's a lot cheaper that way to actually spray your foam board and attach the paper yourself, instead of buying the self-adhesive foam boards, because those are really expensive. You can get the ones that are just archival, that are acid-free, instead of buying the ones that have also a glue side on them, because the ones that are self-adhesive are like seriously like way more expensive than the ordinary ones that you can spray with the glue and attach your paper to. And the next tip, of course, is pay attention to all the discounts and all the sales that happen in art stores. I'm subscribed to literally every single art supply store in UK, and I see all the discounts, and sometimes they do also free delivery, so it's kind of very awesome to buy something small if you don't need anything large at the moment, but like a small set of sketching pencils or something, and you have a free delivery, or they do discounts on particular sets or particular products. And this is the way I bought my Sennelier watercolors. So I have like a large set of Sennelier, it's 48, and I paid really few, it's like 50% off it was. So it was really, really awesome that way. And another thing you can also check out on eBay, and eBay is good in a sense that you can buy someone else's art supplies, the one, for example, if a person doesn't need them anymore, they usually sell them, and you can buy them a lot cheaper than you would if you were to pay for the original packaging in the shop. So sometimes they are even unused, so you have to read good and you have to look at the pictures, of course, but everything that I bought off eBay is really, really awesome. Like I had pencil sets that were wrapped in like this plastic covering, the one that like kind of closes the pencil set, so it was completely unopened. And usually I go for auctions and I just bet and bid, and I see as far as I want to go with that particular thing. And usually charities as well, they sell off things that people kind of take there, and they sell off these things for very cheap. And another thing is that I would also suggest you look at like local websites, like even Facebook, stuff for sale. So I usually go there and I just find in the search pastels, and then I just go through all the listings and I see what is for sale. For example, I just found Sennelier pastel sticks for £1, like soft pastels Sennelier for £1, like £1 each. So my husband was very happy and wasn't very impressed by that, but he'll deal with it. So anyway, these are the main tips that I wanted to give you about saving money on art supplies. And really, you don't need a lot of money to start doing art. Just every now and then treat yourself to something. But if you follow these little suggestions, then for sure you will have a lot of more money left to spend on more art supplies. But that's just a joke, maybe not, but yeah, here we are. So hope this video was helpful, and I hope that you found some new ways to how to save money on art supplies. If you know any other tips, I would like to hear those as well. So comment below and don't forget to like this video. Bye!